3 of our Webathon here today. And today, this is the section I was calling Fun and Gaming. So we're going to be doing some more recreational stuff here in the latter part. First, I want to talk about my regular broadcasts that I broadcast on these channels. I have been so delighted by the opportunity to connect with so many of you over the years in and through these broadcasts. And it's always fun when I get to meet people in person at Moots to talk about the broadcasts that we, the time that we have shared together in our discussions and all of the other various things that we do at the broadcasts. I wanted to, well, first of all, before I do anything else, I want to do some more drawings. Now that I've told you guys all about the collaboratory, which we just discussed in the previous couple hours, showing you guys how the new collaboratory works, I want to give away some door prizes. I'm going to give away coupon codes. Some coupon codes that are worth a month's subscription to at the essential level. So you get a free month participation in the collaboratory. So we're gonna do drawing, and same. If you've filled out the form before today, it's the same one, but I'll repost the link. Okay, so there's the link. You can fill out the form, and we'll enter you into a drawing for a free month. You can give that away, by the way. If you are already a subscriber, you can either apply it, and it'll, I think, give you a discount on your next charge, if I am understanding correctly how the integration works. Or as I said, you could give it away. That'd be cool too. So, all right, just fill out that simple form. I will enter you into that, and we'll do a drawing in a little bit. Okay, so first, I want to talk about Other Minds and Hands. Other Minds and Hands has been, of course, it's too late for Maggie to join me. It's pretty late over there in the UK where she's living, and she's had a long day. But Other Minds and Hands is now about a year and a half old. This past year was the first full year of Other Minds and Hands. And the thing that was so for those of you who don't know what Other Minds and Hands is, Other Minds and Hands is the weekly show in which Maggie and I talk about adaptation. We talk about specific adaptations, but we also talk about adaptation in general. And I know that I have learned a very great deal, both from Maggie and just generally in our discussion. Not only in learning more about film and filmmaking and many things involved in that I never understood or that I took for granted, but also understanding more, thinking through more clearly what the process of doing an adaptation of a text is. And it's a subject I've become increasingly fascinated by, and I'm really interested to continue thinking and discussing more, both with Maggie in this broadcast and in the project that she and I are going to be working on together in the collaboratory on the Lord of the Rings films. Anyway, so we the thing that was really cool about this past year, as I said, it's been about a year and a half since we started Other Minds and Hands. Of course, we began Other Minds and Hands in the middle of the Rings of Power. Sorry, I almost said the Rings of Power nonsense, by which I meant all of the internet brouhaha and spicy discourse that led up to the release of the Rings of Power. The motivation for it was to have a place where we could discuss questions of adaptation. Both two things, both a place to have where you can discuss questions of adaptation without everyone jumping at you, and secondly, to be thinking through a little bit more rationally what is really at stake in adaptation and how it really works, because it became increasingly clear to me that people were not thinking about this clearly, like apart from the fact that many people's takes on the Rings of Power, especially before it came out, were a little zesty and unnecessarily or even irrationally so. But in any case, I think that again, yeah, a big part of the motivation was to be able to learn more, just to think more clearly through what's going on with adaptation. So anyway, that's been a lot of fun. But the real feature of this past year has been, well, talking about other things, right? I mean, because it was in the midst of the Rings of Power, we did a lot of Rings of Power talk last year, and that was really fun. I loved that. I enjoyed that. I'm looking forward to discussing more Rings of Power later on. And I'm still doing things like fan tracks recordings on the Rings of Power episodes and stuff. But it's been really neat to be able to get out of that one situation, especially that one kind of volatile situation, and to be thinking more broadly about this. This year has been a lot more just kind of learning process. As we've been discussing other things, non-Tolkien things, other stuff, I've been loving the series that we started doing recently, which is when we began looking at openings. Maggie wanted to do some closer readings. Rather than just kind of speaking in general about patterns and trends and thinking about a book and a film, right, or even a sort of overarching theme or even a character, as we did, for instance, we talked about the Peter Jackson films for a while there this past year, looking at things like, let's talk about the representation of elves and dwarves and things like that. Anyway, the opening series has allowed us to sort of choose very particular scenes, very particular moments, and what we chose was the opening paragraphs of the book, and then the opening scenes of multiple adaptations of multiple treatments of that same opening, and I've been really loving that. That's been really cool. So once again, really illuminating. I've been learning so much. So I'm gonna do our grand prize drawing for that. So the grand prize, I've been, in all of these broadcasts, I've been giving out prizes every week. I've been doing drawings every week. But I decided on a grand prize for each of the broadcasts, and the grand prize for Other Minds and Hands, the winner of this drawing, which is drawn from among people who have been watching and following along with Other Minds and Hands. With Other Minds and Hands. The winner will get to choose a time. We'll get to determine the discussion of a session or a series of sessions, depending on how we engage with the idea and with the suggestion. So they're going to be able to determine the topic and trajectory for us. All right, so I'm gonna roll now among all of the people who have filled out the Other Minds and Hands form. And the winner is, oh, wonderful! The winner is Jen Artanis. Wonderful, Jennifer. I got to meet Jennifer at the Prancing Pony Moot last year. That was delightful. Congratulations, Jen. We will be in touch to talk about that. I don't think Jen Artanis is here. I haven't seen her around today, but congratulations there. Now, let's talk about the next show. Let's talk about Exploring the Lord of the Rings. Exploring the Lord of the Rings has made massive progress over the course of this year. We have traveled with the company as the company has gone a little bit across Holland. The ring has been going south. We got up Karathros this year. We got attacked by wolves this year. It's been an eventful year. We met wasn't it this year that we met the genocide of crows? I think it was. Pretty sure. Anyway, Exploring the Lord of the Rings. So for those of you who aren't involved in Exploring the Lord of the Rings, what we're doing there is a sentence by sentence discussion of the entire Lord of the Rings. So every night we discuss 2-3 paragraphs. Every session we discuss 2-3 paragraphs of the Lord of the Rings, and we've been proceeding in unhurried and stately fashion through the book, and we are almost up to Moria. We just arrived at the walls of Moria. We're still scheduled to be attacked by the Watcher in the water, so we've got a little bit before we enter the gates of Moria still. So it'll probably be a couple months yet before we actually enter the mountain. Yeah, Scott, you're right. The ring inches south is pretty much what it's been. But anyway, I have Exploring the Lord of the Rings is just a staple. And of course, as you guys saw in the collaboratory presentation, I'm doing my my book on Exploring the Lord of the Rings. My Exploring the Lord of the Rings book, it's not designed exactly to be a companion to the Tuesday night discussion. It's designed to be to follow behind it. It's to be a synthesis of that. Whenever we're doing close reading of the kind we're doing on Tuesday nights, where we're really focusing on the sentences and paragraphs there, really focusing in on that one passage, on every passage as we go through, what you're doing is a lot of data collecting, but what you can't do is make connections, right? Is do the larger synthesis. And that's what I'm doing in the book. So in the book, I'm kind of trying to bring things together and to make a larger overall argument and kind of show the larger patterns and how it all fits together. So kind of coming along behind where the Tuesday night show has gone has been fun. It's been really cool. So yeah, we're going to be entering the 8th year. I think we'll be 7 years very soon. Actually, we only have 1 or 2 more sessions, and then we'll be. Hey, hang on a second. Looking at the dates, I forgot about that. What day is Tolkien's birthday? Yeah, oh, it's a Wednesday. Okay, so not quite. We started on January 3rd, which is Tolkien's birthday. So yeah, January 3rd, 2017 was our first session. So when in our session on the 2nd. Of January, which we should be meeting that day, will be almost 1 day shy of 7 years in. Yeah, Exploring the Lord of the Rings isn't so much an undertaking as a life choice. Right. And it's funny, one of the jokes that I often, it's not even a joke, but one of the things that sometimes people will express chagrin. They will say like, well, the only problem with Exploring the Lord of the Rings is I know I'm not going to live to the end of the book, because it's certainly going to take decades more for us to get to the end. And what I always say is it's not about, don't think about it in terms of dying before you get to the end. Think about it this way. Say you know that you just take pleasure in the fact that you will have Exploring the Lord of the Rings for as long as you live, right? There's no chance that you will be sitting there desolate with no Exploring the Lord of the Rings to do. So anyway, it's been wonderful. Now the grand prize drawing for Exploring the Lord of the Rings is cheating death, right? So for people who are worried that, we've had a lot of people joking about how they have particular comments that they want to make on a passage in the Return of the King, but they're going to have to leave those comments to their heirs in their will, right? So that we'll have people coming, to class and saying like, before he died, my grandfather said that I should make this comment in the class. Hey, Jen, you're here. Wonderful. John Ortez, did you see that you won the Other Minds and Hands drawing? You totally won it. I don't know if you saw that, but you won it. Anyway, so here's what's going to happen. The winner of the grand prize drawing for Exploring the Lord of the Rings is going to get the chance to choose a passage from later in the book. It has to be like, you know, the normal scope of our discussion. You can't choose like a whole chapter or something that's ridiculous. But if there's a particular passage that you want to talk about, we will take a class off and we'll jump ahead and we'll do a discussion on that passage so that you get a chance to talk about that passage while you're still alive. Yes, the entirety of the appendices would not count, JJ. That's just not... Yeah, I know it's true in most stories cheating death never turns out well, but this is necromancy as it might have been. Okay, it's wholesome necromancy. It's all good. Not exactly necromancy. We're not trying to learn anything. Well, actually, I guess we are. Technically, it is necromancy. Okay, that's fine. Okay. All right, are you ready? Here, I got to see how many total we have. It's a long list, as Treebeard would say. Okay. All right, I already have the perfect dice out for that. All right, here we go. And the grand prize winner of the opportunity, let's see, number 158. Just scrolled right past it. Okay. All right, the winner is Lucy Mott. Okay, Lucy Mott is the winner. Excellent. So we will be in touch with Lucy to see what passage we can jump ahead and do. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. I'm kind of going through the week, right? Mondays we do Other Minds and Hands now. We shifted to Mondays. Tuesday nights, of course, we do Exploring the Lord of the Rings. On Wednesday nights, we do the Mythgard Academy. I talked about the Mythgard Academy a little bit earlier on today. Mythgard Academy began in 2013, and it has been very satisfying. We have read a lot of books together now. So unlike Exploring the Lord of the Rings, when we discuss books together in Mythgard Academy, we don't go sentence by sentence, unless it's chapter 15 of Till We Have Faces, but generally we don't. That's what we're talking about right now, and what I just tried to get through on Wednesday and failed. But it's been a fun opportunity to both. I've been so grateful for the chance to discuss books that I've never gotten a chance to teach. And for me, that's such a blessing. I feel like I've never really gotten to sink my teeth into a book really until I've taught it. That experience of going through a book together and kind of teaching my way through and discussing it through with you guys just really opens up even books that are familiar to me in new ways. It's just for me, it's such a rich experience. And I'm so grateful to be able to do it. So we have not only the opportunity. For me, the biggest highlight, I mean, it's hard to top this from the history of the Mythgard Academy. The highlight has been the history of Middle-earth. We've gone through the history of Middle-earth. James Tauber taught his way through the history of Middle-earth, one a month for the last year in space. That is a really cool march through the history of Middle-earth. It's taken me rather longer, but we did... Starting in, I think we did volume 1 of the Book of Lost Tales in something like 2015, I want to say it was. Anyway, it was it's been marvelous. Of course, we have a rule in the Mythgard Academy. We have several rules in the Mythgard. Okay, not that many, but one of our rules in the Mythgard Academy is that we can't talk about 2 books by the same author in a row. It's mostly a Tolkien rule to keep us from talking about nothing but Tolkien. We wanted to make sure to mix it up. That's why I instituted the rule. It's 2014. Thank you, Scott. We started Book of Lost Tales Part 1 in May of 2014. Okay, excellent. So anyway, so the rule is we can't do 2 in a row. So we've been doing basically one Tolkien book and one other book for a long time, and the History of Middle-earth has been it for the last 20 odd books that we've done, because we did interrupt to do The Nature of Middle-earth when it came out. I wanted to do that right when it emerged. We were all reading it together. It was really fun. Scott, how did I do Unfinished Tales starting in January of 2014? And then I started the Book of Lost Tales in May of 2014 with another book in between. That was ridiculous. I was in such a rush back in those days. Well, I'm wiser now. Anyway, it's the published date on YouTube. No, it's probably right. I was going to guess that the reason I guessed 2015 was that I was pretty sure that Unfinished Tales was 2014. But, yeah, it was pretty hasty. It was. Anyhow, in between our volumes of the History of Middle-earth, and again, just to sort of finish up on that, the History of Middle-earth is something, that I read, but, it was never something that I just read cover to cover, like in one sitting. I was mostly referring to it. There were bits I was really interested in focusing on and trying to learn. But to just kind of absorb the whole thing, to just march implacably through the whole series of, History of Middle-earth, chapter by chapter, in the way that we did, was enormously useful. I think it may be the single most enriching experience of my whole Tolkien scholarship career, really. Like I said, I feel like I don't really know a book until I taught it. And so teaching my way through the History of Middle-earth has completely transformed, and really it has instilled in me over the last 10 years an increasing fascination in Tolkien's work and his career with the dimension of time put in. And I didn't know it well enough in the past to be able to really have my fingers on, the development of Tolkien's imagination over time. Not that I'm the master of that now, but there's so much there. But in any case, we in addition to the History of Middle-earth, in addition to the Tolkien stuff we've been doing, the every other book, right, the non-Tolkien books that we've done have given me the opportunity to teach books that I have never gotten a chance to teach. I've been able to teach books that I have loved for decades and have never been able to teach, like Watership Down, one of my very favorite books ever, but I had never taught before. Like Dracula, which I have taught before, but was really excited to do it in the Mythgard Academy. Anyway, but in addition, I've been discovering works that I hadn't read. There were several times that a book won the election, either that I did not know very well or that I had never read at all. Like, for instance, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell was a book that when it was elected, I had never read it before. So I was discovering that book for the first time as we went through it together. Yeah. And yes, Tomas, we have one volume. We have The Peoples of Middle-earth left. I'm looking up at my bookshelf, it's still just the one, right? History of Middle-earth hasn't grown since then. Anyhow, yeah. So much love for the Mythgard Academy. What's coming up soon? We're doing Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis right now, which is just a mind-blowingly amazing book. If you've never read it, man, it's incredible. That's one I've been waiting to do for a long, long time. So excited about that. We're going to do other books that are coming up. We're going to talk about The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. We're going to talk about Fantastes by George MacDonald. And of course, we have The Peoples of Middle-earth as well. Anyway, lots of really, really fun Mythgard Academy stuff that is going to be coming up here soon. So the grand prize for the Mythgard Academy drawing is going to be sort of like Other Minds and Hands. One of the things that the way that the elections are set up in Mythgard Academy, it's hard to do short works, or like maybe somebody wants to have a Mythgard Academy type discussion on like a film or a TV show or a short work, like a short story or something like that. So I'm going to do a special one-shot session on the short work, like again, maybe film or TV show or something. I've done some of that before at like previous Webathons, for instance. I did like a Star Trek episode. I did a Doctor Who episode. I did, I think I've done films before also. Sometimes I've done those in the context, like in the Dracula class, we did a bunch of Dracula films. Okay. You want to discuss an Old English poem, Eric? Well, there you go. There you go. That's, that is theoretically possible. Okay. So let us see. Here we go. All right. And the winner is, sorry, I'm trying to get within my range here. Okay. The winner is number 108. Okay. Maureen Dillon is the winner. Congratulations, Maureen. Wonderful. Okay. Excellent. Maureen, a frequent synchronous attendee of Mythgard Academy. So that's fun. Of course, I totally understand people who can't attend the classes live. You know, I have to pick some time to do, and it's often not convenient for others. So I always really value the folks who are listening after the fact. And everybody, synchronous and asynchronous listeners alike, have had the opportunity to sign up for on the forum for the grand prize. But it is always, of course, I do get to know the people who attend live a little bit better. So, yeah. Okay. The other one, I don't have a drawing for this one because we didn't have enough episodes in the middle of the fundraising campaign to make it work. But of course, the fourth broadcast is Silmarillion Film Project. Silmarillion Film Project is one of my two longest running broadcasts. The SilmFilm project was formed right after Mythmoot 3. I remember I announced it. For those of you who have very long memories indeed when it comes to Tolkien professor stuff, may remember the Riddles in the Dark show that Trish and Dave and I did way back when the Hobbit films were being released. What was that? 2012, 13, and 14, right? And after the third film, when we wrapped up Riddles in the Dark in 2014 there, I was ready to start something new, something different. Scott, you just listened today to the riddles where we announced SilmFilm? That's fun. So I announced it at Mythmoot. I came out and gave a little talk, and about fan fiction and adaptation, and announced we were going to do SilmFilm project. And the SilmFilm project, the idea of the SilmFilm project is that we are planning a theoretical adaptation of the Silmarillion as a serial TV show. And it started off just as sort of as discussion, right? We just went through and so I announced this, right? We're going to do this. And then I remember very distinctly, because I still remember which Feanorian costume she was wearing. I came off, we were on this little stage because we were in Baltimore at the BWI Marriott. Wasn't the Marriott? I think it was the Marriott, the BWI Marriott, which is where Myth Moot 3 was. And I came down the little stage steps after that talk, and Marie Prosser standing at the bottom of the steps looking at me intently. And she was like, "You have my sword." Anyway, we have had a really wonderful community of folks who have really embraced the SilmFilm project. And it has grown over the years, since 2014, which is when we began discussing and planning it. We have gone through, so it started just by, like, if we were doing a show, right? If we were doing a TV adaptation of the Silmarillion, how would we do it? Like, what kinds of adaptation choices would we make? Let's plan it and pretend we're making it, right? Let's brainstorm it. And the pretense, right? The pretending that we've been doing has been getting more and more elaborate as the years have gone by, and more people have been coming in and helping us. So we picked up some wonderful, talented folks from the beginning, like Philip Menzies from down there in Australia, who has been our composer from the beginning. So he began way back in season 1 to start composing actual themes of music to be used in a theoretical score for our theoretical adaptation. We've had visual artists doing drawings and even like storyboards and things like that. We moved from let's just talk about it to let's make outlines for scripts for each episode of the show, to in recent years where volunteers have begun scripting the entire show. In fact, it has been really cool. The SilmFilm trajectory in season one covered from the Ainulindale through the chaining of Melkor. It was entirely focused on the Valar. And I think the episode title that was suggested for episode 13, each season is 13 episodes. The suggested title for episode 13 is still, I think, my favorite episode title of any episode we've had. The title of episode 13 was "The War to Begin All Wars," which that's the best. Anyway, so season 1 was sort of focused on the fall of Melkor, which we were really, one of the goals of season 1 was trying to depict the story in such a way that we help to make sense of why does Melkor fall and how, and also the sort of like seduction by Melkor of Sauron as well. Sauron is the kind of stealth protagonist of the entire. Well, yeah, he's kind of like the stealth protagonist of the entire SilmFilm show. He's like the one character who ties the beginning to the end of the entire show. Anyway, so that was season 1. Season 2, we picked up at Cuivianen with the Awakening of the Elves, and we took it all the way through to the Darkening of Valinor. And then so that was focused, of course, on the elves and Feanor and everything. And then season 3 was from Feanor's speech by Torchlight, right? The kinslaying was episode 2 of that season, all the way up through the Rising of the Sun and the capture of Mithros. So it's, mostly the return to Middle-earth and some meanwhile in Middle-earth stuff going on there with Thingol and the dwarves. And then season 4 was after the Noldor returned, right? It was, I always joke that of the chapter of Beleriand and its realms in the Silmarillion was so exciting and action-packed, we had to split it into 2 seasons. So season 4 was going from the settling of the kingdoms in... it was basically from the rescue of Maedhros. That was episode 1. The rescue of Maedhros and his abdication to Fingolfin. And then all the way up through Glaurung's initial escape and his first fight with Fingon. That was the event at the end. But it's primarily about the establishing of the Elf Kingdoms and about the discovery by Thingol that about the kinslaying and stuff. There was a lot of intrigue in season 4. And also, season 4 had a big Galadriel trajectory in which we invented the whole PTSD Galadriel thing. Totally our idea first. It's documented. And then season 5 was the arrival of men. So we had the arrival of Beor's people in the meeting with Finrod in episode 1, and the season ended. Season 5 ended with the Dagor Bragollach. And season 6, which we recently finished, is the Beren and Luthien season. So we started with Sauron taking Tol Sirion and making it, and we did a lot of the necromancy stuff with Sauron, which was fun. And then up through, of course, the resurrection of Beren and Luthien. The song before Mandos was in that final episode. Things are going to be sad for a good long while now, Bjarnasonar. Well, that's kind of the Silmarillion, right? So now we're in season 7. Season 7 is the Nirnaeth Arnodiad season, so yeah. And it was really fun. We mapped out at the beginning of our season 7 discussion, we mapped out what we're going to do in the rest of it, and we decided we're going to do 12 total seasons on the first stage. So it was kind of challenging, but we have the basic trajectory now worked out through the War of Wrath. So the War of Wrath will be concluding in season 12, and will be at the end of the first stage in 12 seasons of SilmFilm. So it's been going on since, as I said, we started discussing it and working on it in 2014. So that means it's about 9.5 years, and we're halfway through the first stage. So, another decade, and we'll get there. We'll get to the end of the first stage in another decade, which, at the pace of my broadcast, is quick work. So I have found the SilmFilm project. There have been a number of times when I have been surprised, not only at how much fun it was to do the kind of creative work that we're doing there, but how refreshing it was. Way earlier in the day today, when Laurel Stevens and I were talking about Mythmoot and the Mythmoot theme this year, we were talking about the importance of making something, creating something, especially in the middle of turmoil and, when things are difficult. And there have been so many times over the last 10 years that SilmFilm has been going on that I have found there have been many times during which that broadcast was the only genuinely creative project. I mean, I was inventing Signum, and that was a creative project too. But as far as like being engaged in a creative, like making a story, right, doing that kind of inventive process, was something I hadn't done in a long time and wasn't doing otherwise. And the process of being in those creative discussions was really refreshing to me, and I didn't even realize it for a while. But it has been just delightful, and I find that I really look forward to it for that reason now. I think of the ways in which doing that kind of this is a risk of me like spinning off into a whole lecture, which I'm going to try not to do. But I think and talk sometimes about what many people call fan fiction, and I think is more productively described as a creative engagement with a text, with a story. There are lots of ways in which you can engage with a story. but to engage with it creatively. That is, when the reading of a story inspires stories in your own head. When you feel that the response to what you are seeing and reading is to make something yourself, right? That is a really not only a legitimate but an important response. And the thing that I have come to see more and more clearly over the years is that this was absolutely central to Tolkien's own work. Absolutely central to Tolkien's own work. So much of what he did, so many of the scholarly books that he did not write, from a scholarly perspective, Tolkien was a wonderful philologist, but from a purely scholarly perspective, when you look at his academic output, publication-wise, his career was not a great success. He was a great philologist. He wrote an enormously influential essay, The Monsters and the Critics. He was an important scholar, but he never produced the great, landmark work of scholarship that many people were kind of waiting for from him. What he produced instead was The Lord of the Rings. And The Lord of the Rings, which I think is underappreciated even by Tolkien fans, The Lord of the Rings is his great work of scholarship as well as his great story. It is clear to me that this is the primary way in which this was his preferred form of expression, his preferred format for presenting his scholarship, was to engage with texts creatively. Did he ever write the definitive Beowulf book? No, he never did write the definitive scholarly Beowulf book. But he did write The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. And in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, he is engaging creatively with Beowulf in many rich and interesting ways. And that, again, is not only not an embarrassing thing to do, shouldn't be an embarrassing thing to do. That's a good thing to do. And I have found my own, scholarly work being enriched similarly. The process of creative engagement with the Silmarillion that we've been doing, the Silmarillion and the history of Middle-earth, and much of it over the last decade in which we've been doing SilmFilm, has been important for me, as well as being a kind of creative outlet as well. Bjarnason, that's interesting to hear. That doesn't surprise me at all. He says that he's a linguist. He says, I engage best with linguistics ideas by implementing them in a creative context, by making up languages, right? By conlanging. You're not alone in that, Bjarnason. There it is too. Did he never write did Tolkien never write the big definitive book on philology, right? On the changing of languages over time? Well, no, he was too busy doing it, right? He was too busy spending his whole life, shaping Sindarin and Quenya. So, that's exactly where it's not that's like a need be viewed, I think, as a rival to his scholarship, but as an expression of it. Anyway, so yes, loving the SilmFilm project, and it is. I have notions. Well, I'll say only this. Ever since we began to plan the collaboratory, I've been kind of looking at SilmFilm and looking at the collaboratory and kind of going back and forth and saying something should happen here. I don't know exactly what yet. I don't know what that should look like, but I think something should happen here. So who knows? We'll see. All right. Finally, my fifth broadcast of the week is my Gryfflet stream, my Lord of the Rings Online stream that I do. It's the only one. It's the only one of my broadcasts that isn't hosted on our Signum channels. It's hosted on the official Twitch channel of the Lord of the Rings Online video game, and that's my other longest running broadcast. I've been doing that since Phil just had to leave. He's the one who always remembers. 2015. I'm pretty sure it was 2015 was when I started my LOTRO stream. And what I've been doing is, yeah, it was 2015. That's what I thought. Thanks, Hologrow. I think you've been with me since then, I believe, in the Gryfflet stream. So what I've been doing, and kind of leaning into it more as I've gone through, is doing a completionist look at the stories that the LOTRO developers have built in the video game world. I didn't begin it as a way of saying, I mean, when I began it, I didn't approach it by saying, let us look at adapting, how one adapts a rich work like The Lord of the Rings in a video game environment, right? That wasn't the explicit sort of premise of beginning my Gryfflet stream, but it is what I've been doing, essentially. The Lord of the Rings Online is a brilliant adaptation, a brilliant, thoughtful, sensitive, and engaging adaptation of Tolkien's work. And I have been really enjoying learning from them, seeing what they're doing. I've been sampling the entire scope of the story that they write. I go through now, and my character Gryfflet, who's a burglar, little hobbit burglar, I try to complete every single quest that there is, following all of the storylines in all of the different regions, to see the world that they're building, the way that their stories unfold, the overarching narrative, and how that overarching narrative interacts with the overarching narrative of the book, plus all of the other things that they get to sort of fill in. The most delightful thing about video game adaptations, especially in something like an MMO, is the leisure. It is pure luxury. When you think about the kind of cruel compression that has to go into doing a film version of anything, right, of any book, it's ridiculous. How much has to be compressed. It's very, very hard. It can often be done very, very well, obviously, but it's very challenging to do. In a situation like The Lord of the Rings Online, you have the opportunity to expand. It's like make a movie, except it's fine if the movie is 500 hours long, right? And that's really cool. That's really cool. So I have really enjoyed going around and consuming their stories. What I'm about to transition to doing here in just a minute is I'm gonna play some LOTRO now. That's the next thing and the last thing on the agenda here for today. But I'm not going to be running Gryfflet, my burglar, who does completionist all the quests in the area. This slow, gradual. I've thoroughly explored on screen. I created the character on day one of my Gryfflet stream. I made the character on stream, and Gryfflet and I have explored a very large percentage of the entire game world in a lot of detail, looking at all the stories and how they all connect and fit in. And I am very. It's really wonderful to see those develop. What I'm going to be doing in the gaming that I'm going to start in a little bit is running with my oldest character, the very first LOTRO character I ever made when I opened up the game, and that's Wigand, who's a guardian. He's a warrior tank type, and with him I don't do every quest. I just follow the main storyline. So with him I'm trying to trace the overall arc. and I was in the middle of in the middle of the last movement of one of the big story arcs of the game, and I just started this, as I mentioned earlier on. I played about 12-hour marathon with Wigand, moving that story forward a little while back, and then but I had to stop because I'd already been gaming for like 13 hours and I couldn't make it all the way through. So I'm going to return to that today, and we're going to pick that up and continue forward a little bit. So let me do one draw. I want to do a unfortunately I was planning to come back to my Gryfflet stream with this several times, but I got derailed a little bit in my Gryfflet stream. But I have some people who signed up for the Gryfflet here we go, on my for a Gryfflet drawing. I'm going to do a Gryfflet drawing here where I'm going to give away like I did before. You can choose an anytime audit, a regional moot, or a space class. So we're going to do one of those. And okay, the winner of that is, oh, hey, the winner of that is JJ48. Stephen, congratulations. I know I saw you here earlier. Congratulations. JJ is the winner. Excellent. Okay. Cool. Now let me go back to my other drawing sheet. No, wait, not that one. I have a bunch of them now. Okay, here's this one. There we go. All right. Let's do the drawing for the door prize. So this is a drawing for a coupon worth a free month's subscription, essential subscription to the new Collaboratory. Okay. Here we go. And the winner is Michelle Catriana. Congratulations. Congratulations. Excellent. Oh, yes, I thought you were here, Catriana. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. In conclusion here, to conclude this little mini segment, I am so grateful to all of you who have been taking all of these various journeys with me. It has been, I remember way back when I first started doing this interactive online thing, originally through podcasting, and then all the things that grew from it. I remember people being skeptical back then, back in like 2011, 2010, being skeptical that people that you met in a, chat room during an online, that you could like actually get to know them in any significant way. Right. And that has been so profoundly disproven to me over the years. It's a little easier to get people to believe that now they're a little readier to believe it now than they were in 2010. But it has been such an honor to get to know so many of you as I have over the years. I'm very grateful for all of you in our community there. Okay. And cool. Yeah. Hey, YouTube folks, actually, no, this is not a recorded video. In fact, I'm broadcasting live. All right. So I'm thinking to end the session again. I'm just gonna flip on and off quickly though, so that we can create a separate video segment. It just makes it a little easier for my folks, my video processing folks. You're right. It's a future recorded video, Druid's Fire. That's completely true. Okay. Oh, also, yeah, I do want to. Oops, I lost it. Hang on a second. Let me reclaim. Let me send you a link to, because remember, well, I say remember, some of you might not have been here 6 hours ago when I was talking to Rob Gosselin in the space program, but they're running a special in space today, which I've seen a bunch of people have been taking advantage of, which is really cool. So this is a link to the page where you can read about the space token promotion that they're running today in space. So if you missed that, I wanted to make sure to show that to you. Yeah, all right. So we'll be back. I'll be back in just like a minute. And I'm gonna fire up Lord of the Rings Online, and we're gonna continue with the Siege of Barad-dûr. All right. So be back in just a moment.